Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Fiction Network. Unleash yourself, starting from Harry Potter, the story of a protagonist with a mental illness who sets himself free in the heavens and realms. How can one be considered as releasing oneself in the world of Harry Potter? Is it to masturbate Professor McGonagall's Animagus form, or boil a pot of hotpot seasoning in Professor Snape's classroom, or ignite a network revolution in the magical world, or open up a small world and rebuild a Hogwarts? Come on, this novel will write a story that everyone wants to read. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Introduction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At 4:30 p.m., the factory gates slowly opened and crowds surged out of it. At this moment, our protagonist Lauren also walked out of the factory with the crowd. He was numb all over his face, moving with the flow of people like a walking corpse. At the beginning, Lauren followed an ordinary life path. Although there were some small accidents in the middle, he eventually became an ordinary person, although he was slightly different from others. In high school, Lauren, like other students, was full of imagination and a desire to explore. He enjoys reading science fiction magazines and novels, and every time he finishes reading them, he leaves infinite imagination in his mind. One noon, Lauren lay in bed in the school dormitory preparing for a nap, still thinking about the science fiction stories he had read before, imagining the vastness of the universe and the insignificant nature of humanity in the universe, and how short a person's life is. Suddenly, some terrifying thoughts came to his mind, which frightened Lauren and made him jump out of bed, unable to calm down for a long time. Lauren tried to shake off these terrifying thoughts, but found it impossible. These thoughts seemed to be rooted in his mind and cannot be erased. He noticed some changes in himself and found that he couldn't think deeply because once he thought deeply about something, these terrifying thoughts would constantly emerge, causing him to fall into despair. When despair accumulates to a certain extent, some crazy ideas will suddenly jump out of the mind. At the beginning, he kept learning about some knowledge, without seeking a deep understanding, trying to squeeze terrifying thoughts with different knowledge. But Lauren gradually realized that this method was not working. The combination of knowledge and terrifying thoughts gave rise to many crazy ideas. His thirst for knowledge drove him to try those ideas, commonly known as killing. Finally, Lauren chose to empty his brain and try to ensure a comfortable mood, avoiding excessive thinking in his brain. Lauren started to change, and the grades that were originally in the top few of the class began to slowly decline. Although he tried his best to get into a key high school, he eventually enrolled in a local college. After graduation, after being beaten by society, I became a member of countless working people in society, as if all the scripts had returned to normal. But normal seemed only temporary, and Lauren found himself gradually losing control. Various knowledge in society is unintentionally infused, with arguments between parents, forced marriages from family elders, and numbness accumulated on the factory assembly line all oppressing him. Those crazy, death thoughts repeatedly emerge from the brain, and are repeatedly suppressed by the desire to survive. He gradually changed from being optimistic and cheerful in the eyes of his colleagues to being quiet and numb. Just after work, Lauren followed the crowd and walked aimlessly on the street. Suddenly, there was a rapid honking sound from behind. When he regained consciousness, everyone around him had already dodged from afar, leaving him alone on the road. A small truck collided fiercely from behind. Lauren felt like he was flying, rolling incessantly, with excruciating pain all over his body, before gradually losing consciousness. When Lauren regained some consciousness, it seemed like he was in the emergency room. He vaguely saw several doctors busy and felt like he could still save some time. Suddenly, those terrifying and crazy thoughts that had been suppressed by his desire to survive surged out. Why do people exist? Is it because of physical thinking? When my body dies, I stop thinking, then do I still exist? Life is only a few short decades, less than a moment in the world. What will happen to such a small me after death? Am I still me? Do I really have a soul? I really want to give it a try. In the end, we all have to die. Why should we restrain ourselves and not do what we want to do? This is an excellent opportunity. I will explore the world after death as an experimental subject, and there will be no external pressure. These thoughts kept surging, and Lauren's own desire for survival had reached the brink of collapse after more than a decade of torment. In the end, Lauren gave up his struggle and suppressed his desire for survival. He was prepared to submit to these terrifying thoughts and personally explore the world after death. Chapter 1. Freshman and Golden Finger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lauren felt once again, like a drowning person suddenly breathing fresh air, his whole body rejuvenated. Slowly, Lauren began to feel the warmth of the outside world. At first, it was the sunlight shining on her body, followed by the touch of a gentle breeze caressing her skin. He tried to open his eyes, but when he entered, he could only see a blurry patch of color, making it difficult to distinguish specific things. He wanted to reach out and rub his eyes, but found himself unable to control his body. He was frightened and wanted to shout, only to find that he could only cry in silence. Some thoughts popped up in my mind. Did I die or was I rescued? I still have a feeling that I shouldn't be dead. If this is the case after death, then the death would be really tragic. Did I become completely paralyzed or a vegetative? As various thoughts alternated in her mind, a sense of exhaustion slowly swept over, and eventually Lauren fell into a deep sleep. After a period of exploration, Lauren realized that she had become a baby, which made her life very inconvenient. Because babies need a lot of sleep every day to support the development of their body and brain, usually between 16 and 20 hours. Moreover, due to his active thinking and incomplete brain development, Lauren has less time to think clearly every day than an ordinary baby. For this reason, Lauren did not allocate any energy to do other things, but followed his own understanding of the baby growth process. Eat as much food as possible, exercise your body as much as possible, and explore the outside world using baby-like methods. The use of external stimuli, good nutrition, and active thinking promotes the development of the brain and body. After a period of development, Lauren's efforts paid off and he began to have more waking time and a body that could move freely. As he grew older, Lauren discovered a fatal problem. He was born in an English-speaking place, but for some unknown reason, he can't learn English. Now Lauren only knows a little American English left over from his previous life, and cannot even satisfy daily communication. He can only understand a few words. Lauren is already 2 years old this year. According to his observations, he is in a small town where his parents run a hotel called Angus's Cabin. The more specific location cannot be determined because due to language reasons, he has not actively stepped out of the hotel so far, only observing the outside through the hotel window. The hotel should be on the edge of the town, and behind it, a dilapidated castle could be faintly seen, which made Lauren suspect that he might be in Europe. He knows his name, Lauren Angus, his father's name is Joel Angus, and his mother's name is Nona Angus. These names were still pieced together by him based on the American English left over from the previous life. Based on the calendar he saw, the current year is 1982, so there is no more information available. Nowadays, Lauren spends all day in his own hotel, healthy and able to dress, wash, and eat on his own, but he doesn't speak much. Every time his parents or others talk to him, Lauren is also inexplicable, only able to understand with a hint of guessing. The rumor that the Angus couple gave birth to a foolish son began to spread. After all, a child who is 2 years old, healthy, can run and jump, but cannot speak or understand what others say. This is not what a fool is. Now the Angus couple is also very worried about Lauren, trying to teach him to speak, but for some reason, Lauren just can't learn to speak. More specifically, it should be that Lauren couldn't understand what they were saying, and those words sounded like gibberish in his ears, while he couldn't fully understand the English he spoke, only able to roughly understand a few words. Lauren has already made the worst plan. If he can't learn to speak English, he can only rely on gestures to communicate with others, and then he can also be considered a congenital deaf-mute. Lauren secretly tried speaking Chinese and found that she could speak it fluently, but Lauren concealed the fact that she knew Chinese. After all, Lauren is a child born in an English-speaking environment who doesn't know English but can speak fluent Chinese, if there is Chinese in this world. The only thing waiting for him is a strange disease named after himself, or an endless study by scientists. At night, Lauren tossed and turned in her small bed, unable to fall asleep. The current situation is not favorable for oneself, but one can still struggle for a while. Roland can only use his last move now. If he succeeds, he can reach the pinnacle of his life. If he fails, he can only hope that there are countries in the world that speak Chinese, otherwise he will only be a deaf-mute for a lifetime. The system, is it there or not? Lauren silently shouted in his heart, saying that every traveler has a system. Ding! Sensing the host's call, detecting the initial development of the host's brain, the system is officially activated. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. None skills. Driving, beginner, fitter, beginner, cooking, beginner. Click to expand. Skills are divided into 6 levels. Beginner, beginner, intermediate, advanced, perfect, and limit-breaking, talent. 1. Strange knowledge. This brain is filled with strange knowledge that may be useful at some point. P.S. Most knowledge is not useful to a normal person for a lifetime, so it's best to pray that you won't use it. 2. Chaotic thinking. Your mind is in a peculiar state of confusion, which prevents it from being affected in any way, whether it is good or bad. P.S. Saying you're crazy and still thinking normally, saying you're not crazy and your thinking is chaotic. Are you a normal person disguised as a lunatic or a lunatic disguised as a normal person? System review. A somewhat strange child. System, do you have a name? Ding. The system has no name. System, what abilities do you have? Ding. The system can record the host's skills, help them break through, and provide relevant skills or talents based on the host's world situation, with detailed information for the host to explore on their own. Where do you come from in the system? The system is provided by the Great ******, aiming to cultivate the host's growth and ultimately bring unique inspiration to the Great *****'s transcendence. System, do you have a beginner gift package? Ding. I have submitted an application to the Great ******, but as the Great ***** is sleeping, the application will be automatically transferred to a lower-level individual. Ding. Has accepted the application. Ding. Received beginner gift pack. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the talent of being proficient in all languages. Ding. Congratulations to the host for receiving feedback from the talent world. Ding. There is a message, please check it by the host. We look forward to you joining our banquet and serving the great master with us. System, open panel. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. None skills. Driving, beginner, fitter, beginner, cooking, beginner. Click to expand talent. 1. Strange knowledge, omitted. 2. Chaotic thinking, omitted. 3. Full language proficiency. Given that your mother tongue is Chinese, everything you see and hear now will be converted into Chinese, and the words you say and write will be converted into corresponding words and languages in the eyes of others. P.S. Chinese is spoken all over the world. 4. World feedback. Every world is unique. There are no 2 identical worlds, but each world will have shadows from other worlds. Now that you have those strange knowledge in your brain, you can put it to use. Find those shadows, and you can get feedback from the world behind them. P.S. Look for differences between worlds, and if you find them, you will receive rewards. This is a big profit deal. System evaluation. A child with potential. Lauren lay in bed, looking at the system panel and pondering carefully. Based on the information provided by the system, the security of the system itself is guaranteed, but it is not necessarily the case, as it is also possible that the system is deceiving itself. Lauren made a plan based on the urgency of the situation. 1. Tomorrow, try to communicate with your parents and demonstrate your speaking ability. After all, I am 2 years old and can speak now. This can reduce my parents' worries and prevent them from taking me to see a doctor, which is not a good thing. 2. Confirm your time and location. After all, my reading and writing abilities were frustrating before, but I only knew that I was in 1982 and the location was unknown. It is speculated that I was in a small town in Europe. 3. Confirm the world you are in based on the information you have explored and the knowledge in your mind. After all, according to the system's message, this is an extraordinary world with extraordinary power. 4. Hold on to development in advance and don't think about having something to lose when you haven't fully developed. Looking at his schedule, Lauren nodded in satisfaction. Since the system just came out, it seems like I'm starting to expand. Previously, those crazy thoughts began to emerge, urging oneself to die. After the first attempt at killing, it became a bit overwhelming afterwards. Keep developing and don't be reckless, Lauren warned herself secretly. There is no capital to die now, and one may really be killed. Luo ethically adjusted his thoughts and prepared to sleep. Tomorrow is a new beginning, and he needs to work hard. Chapter 2. Parents and the Small Town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Lauren was awakened by the sunshine and the chirping of birds. The sun outside the window is shining brightly. For the rainy and gloomy weather all year round, today is a rare good day, which also makes Lauren's mood much more comfortable. Good weather, good start. According to past habits, Lauren dressed herself, washed herself, and went to the dining room to prepare for dinner. At this moment, Mr. Angus was sitting behind the dining table, holding a newspaper in his hand, carefully reading the news on it. Mr. Angus has black hair and brown eyes. He is a bit short, but not fat. He looks a bit robust and honest, with a hint of shrewdness from a businessman. Mrs. Angus was wearing an apron and busy breakfast in the kitchen. Not only do they eat for their own family, but also for other guests in the hotel. After all, it is a small hotel and providing breakfast is also a source of income. Mrs. Angus has brown hair and black eyes, a slender figure, and is an elegant woman. Lauren is a combination of two looks, with black hair and black eyes, and is very cute. Good morning, Dad, Lauren greeted Mr. Angus and walked towards his seat. Mr. Angus, who was completely focused on looking at the newspaper and preparing to find business opportunities from the news, replied without looking up, "Good morning, baby." Suddenly, he stood up suddenly, the newspaper in his hand being patted onto the table, and then his gaze fixed on Lauren. And Lauren, who was actually climbing onto the chair, was almost scared off by the loud noise and fell off. He climbed up the chair a few times and sat down, then looked at Mr. Angus and said, "What's wrong, Dad? You can speak now." "Well, it will happen suddenly today." "Oh, my God. Nona. Nona. Come and take a look, little Lauren can talk now." He's not a fool, he just developed a little late, I knew it. Mrs. Angus, who was busy in the kitchen, heard her husband's call and threw away her belongings. She ran out of the kitchen and tightly hugged Lauren sitting in the chair. "Oh, my God. Mom's baby can speak now, it must be God who heard Mom's prayer. Thank God." At this moment, Lauren was tightly embraced by Mrs. Angus, and her face turned red from being suppressed. "Mom, I can't catch my breath anymore," Lauren shouted with all his strength. "Oh, Nona, let go of little Lauren quickly." Mr. Angus, who was on the other side of the dining table, immediately ran over and saved Lauren from Mrs. Angus. Lauren, who was rescued, took a few hard breaths and the blush on his face began to fade before he spoke. Mom, your love is too passionate for me to bear. Oh, I'm sorry, my baby. It's Mom's fault. Mom is too excited. My baby is not a fool, I have to let the whole town know. After Mrs. Angus finished speaking, she immediately picked up Lauren and wanted to go out. She couldn't wait to tell everyone in the town that her baby was not a fool, but had developed late. Nona, calm down. After breakfast, take Lauren to the town for a walk, get to know the neighbors, and let them know that Lauren is not a fool. Mr. Angus immediately stopped Mrs. Angus. Mom, I'm hungry. Lauren, pulled by Mrs. Angus, spoke out her own voice. Mrs. Angus regained her senses and hurriedly walked towards the kitchen, saying as she walked, "Yes, make breakfast first. I can't let my baby go hungry." Lauren and Mr. Angus exchanged a glance, and Mr. Angus spoke up. "Little Lauren, you need to understand your mother. Last time Mrs. Doris in town talked to you, she started spreading the news that you were a fool everywhere. She's such a big mouth, and in a few days, the whole town found out. Your mother has been so angry that she hasn't spoken to her until now." Upon hearing Mr. Angus's words, Lauren immediately realized who Mrs. Doris was. Now Lauren recalls that the scenes back then were all a bit overwhelming. That is an elderly British lady with short grey-white hair and delicate glasses. Wearing bright printed skirts and colorful scarves. Wearing large dot-sized earrings and necklace, as well as an oversized ring. That day she came to chat with Mrs. Angus, to share her life story and insights, and to boast about how cute her granddaughter was. Mrs. Angus also praised Lauren as a sensible child who can take care of herself without any worries from her parents, even though she is over 2 years old and unable to speak, which made her a little worried. Mrs. Doris believed that by communicating more with people, she could learn to speak, so Lauren was caught chatting with Mrs. Doris. That was a terrifying scene, with Lauren sitting in a chair and Mrs. Doris talking non-stop. The speed of her speech was too fast, and Lauren's English proficiency was in a hurry. She only sat from head to toe with a bewildered expression, and finally popped out a few American English sentences that were not yet standard, and no one could understand what Lauren was saying. The rumor that the Angus couple had a silly son only began to emerge after that. Lauren couldn't help but shudder when she recalled it now. Mr. Angus smiled and said, "It's okay, Mrs. Doris just enjoys chatting with people and doesn't have any bad intentions." At this moment, Mrs. Angus walked out with 3 breakfasts and placed them on the dining table. She happily said, "Baby, it's time for dinner." Lauren looked at the English breakfast placed in front of him, a small portion of milk and cereal, a boiled egg, and some chopped fruits, and happily ate it. After breakfast, Mrs. Angus took Lauren upstairs to change into new clothes, and she also had to dress up and showcase her baby to everyone in town in a perfect state. Mr. Angus shook his head helplessly and tidied up the table. After a while of tinkering, it was already past 9 o'clock in the morning, and only then did Angus leave the hotel with his well-dressed Lauren. This is the first time in Lauren's life that he has ever stepped out of a hotel to explore the outside world. Walking outside the hotel gate, Lauren turned around and looked at the place where he had lived for 2 years. From the outside, the small inn is a 3-story building, not very large, with a clean and tidy appearance, white walls and blue tiles, quite beautiful. The sign, "Angus's Cabin," hangs at the entrance of the inn. Just as Lauren was lost in thought as he looked at his small inn, Mrs. Angus pulled Lauren towards the town. After leaving the hotel gate, there is a rural road with shops on both sides, which can be seen at a glance. It doesn't feel like a town, but more like a small village. Mrs. Angus's destination is the coffee shop on the other side of town, where idle women gather for tea and chat. Lauren was pulled forward by Mrs. Angus while greeting the people in town with him. "Hi William, it's a nice day today. I'll take my baby out for a walk. Baby, this is Uncle William who runs a grocery store. Come and say hello." "Good morning, Uncle William." "Oh, is this your little baby? She looks so cute." Little Lauren, if you want to eat candy in the future, come find Uncle William. I have enough sugar pipes here. Thank you, Uncle William. What a smart and polite child, Nona. You're so lucky to have such a lovely child. Thank you very much for your praise. I still have to take my child on a stroll. Goodbye. This conversation has been repeated many times along the way, and Lauren has basically met all the merchants on this street, including Ms. Elizabeth who runs a clothing store, Mrs. Victoria who runs a stationery store, Miss Catherine who runs a hair salon, Mr. Edward from a pharmacy, Mr. Charlotte from a bookstore, and so on. I finally arrived at the entrance of the coffee shop before I was exhausted, and this short road felt like I had walked for a long, long time. Mrs. Angus took Lauren directly into the coffee shop. In the morning, there were no other customers at the coffee shop. The owner, Mrs. Doris, was sitting in the shop drinking coffee. Mrs. Angus took Lauren directly to sit opposite Mrs. Doris. Good morning, Mrs. Doris. Lauren took the lead in greeting Mrs. Angus and Mrs. Doris. Mrs. Doris put down her coffee cup at the words and looked at Lauren in surprise. Oh, my lovely little angel, you can talk now. Yes, Mrs. Doris, Lauren can speak now. He's not a fool. Mrs. Angus interjected. Sorry, Nona, you know, I like to chat with people, it's my fault. To express my apologies, let's have lunch with me today. When it's tea time in the afternoon, we'll gather all the ladies for a tea party, and I'll apologize to you in public. I blamed this lovely little angel. After listening to Mrs. Doris, Mrs. Angus no longer got angry. The two of them started chatting again, and Lauren sat next to her, listening honestly, collecting information from the adults' conversations. Suddenly, a sentence came into Lauren's ear. Lorraine is really cute, and my granddaughter Hermione is not bad either. They will definitely become good friends when they are together. Chapter 3. What is the world? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lauren suddenly heard Hermione's name, which gave him some inspiration. After all, in his memory, this name represents a special character. But Lauren didn't make too much movement and continued to sit quietly listening until Mrs. Doris went to prepare lunch before he had the opportunity to ask Mrs. Angus a question. Mom, I heard Mrs. Doris say she has a granddaughter, why haven't I seen her here? Mrs. Angus touched Lauren's head and answered with a smile. Hermione, of course, cares about her parents. I haven't seen her either, but I heard from Mrs. Doris that their family of 3 lives in London. Lauren looked at Mrs. Angus with his lovely eyes and asked, Can I see her then? Mrs. Doris said we can become friends. I haven't made friends yet, so I don't know if it's fun to be friends. Mrs. Angus held Lauren in her arms and murmured. My dear Lauren, you will make many friends in the future, I promise. Suddenly, Mrs. Angus seemed to remember something and said to Lauren. Lauren, wait for Mom for a moment. I need to call your dad and say, we'll have lunch at Mrs. Doris and let him solve the lunch problem himself. Okay, Mom. Upon receiving Lauren's answer, Mrs. Angus stood up and walked towards the telephone next to the counter. Lauren sat in a chair and called out to the system. Can the system confirm being in the world of Harry Potter? Ding. Insufficient elements, unable to determine. How can we determine? Ding. Contact the main characters and items, or check in at key buildings to confirm. While Lauren was communicating with the system, Mrs. Angus and Mrs. Doris walked back together. Mrs. Doris held today's lunch in her hand, with several sandwiches of different shapes, while Mrs. Angus held 3 drinks. Come, little Lauren, try the small ham sandwich and milk we've prepared for you. You need to drink more milk to grow stronger. Thank you, Mrs. Doris. After Lauren finished speaking, he started attacking his lunch and walked all the way in the morning, dealing with so many people. He was really hungry. Mrs. Angus and Mrs. Doris were chatting while eating, and this time Mrs. Angus turned the topic to Hermione. Mrs. Doris really liked this topic and had a great time chatting. Lauren had to perk up his ears, listen carefully, and gather information. After lunch, Lauren took a nap as usual, while Mrs. Angus and Mrs. Doris were preparing for the afternoon tea party. When the ladies in the small town gathered together for afternoon tea, Lauren's nightmare began. Mrs. Doris first apologized to Mrs. Angus at the tea party, and then praised Lauren well. Afterwards, Lauren was like a big toy circulating in the hands of the women in the small town, with various problems ringing in her ears. Lauren had to deal with them one by one, and finally gained a reputation for being smart and lovely. I believe that the rumors that the Angus couple gave birth to a silly son will completely disappear after today. The tea party ended, and Mrs. Angus also bid farewell to Lauren and went back to the hotel to prepare dinner. Passing by Mr. Charlotte's bookstore midway, Mrs. Angus prepared to buy some children's books for Lauren. She had bought several books before, but Lauren couldn't understand or comprehend them. In the end, these children's books disappeared without a trace. When Mrs. Angus was selecting children's books, Lauren came across a large and thick encyclopedia of the world, which made it difficult for Lauren to hold. Mrs. Angus, holding a carefully selected children's book, was about to go and pay when she saw Lauren holding a world encyclopedia and standing next to the cashier. "Baby, you're still young and can't understand this book. Give the book to Mr. Charlotte and ask him to help you put it back. Mom has selected good storybooks for you, and all the children like them. Reading these storybooks makes it easier for you to make friends." Mrs. Angus squatted beside Lauren, touching his head and persuading him. "Mom, I like this book. Can you buy it for me?" Lauren held on to the book and didn't let go, with a look like "I would cry if you didn't buy it." "Mrs. Angus, this book is considered a gift from me to Lauren. It has also been in the bookstore for many years, and this old version of the book is not worth much money." Mr. Charlotte saw Lauren holding a cute book and said to Mrs. Angus with a smile, "Thank you, Uncle Charlotte." Lauren immediately hit the snake and stick, thanking Charlotte. "Thank you, Charlotte." Mrs. Angus shook her head helplessly and thanked Charlotte. After settling the bill, Mrs. Angus led Lauren in one hand and carried a pile of books she had bought back to the hotel in the other. After returning to the hotel, Mrs. Angus went to prepare dinner, while Mr. Angus started teaching Lauren how to read with newly purchased children's books. During dinner time, Lauren buried his head in eating, while the Angus couple shared their experiences today. "Joel, Mrs. Doris apologized to me in front of everyone at the tea party today. Now everyone knows that Lauren is a smart and lovely child." "Yes, Nona. Lauren is really smart. I'll read those storybooks to him a few times and he'll read them himself. Lauren will definitely become a scholar in the future." "Oh no. Lauren is so cute, she will definitely become an actor in the future. I don't know how many girls she will be obsessed with." Lauren lowered her head and silently ate her dinner, ignoring her parents who were trapped in fantasies. After dinner, Lauren said to Mrs. Angus, "Mom, I'm so tired today and I want to rest early." "Oh, my dear, you've had a wonderful day and of course you'll be tired. Come on, let me take you to rest." After speaking, Mrs. Angus got up and took Lauren to wash and rest. Mr. Angus took over the cleaning work. Divider line. The next day, Lauren did not wake up on his own as usual, but was called out of bed by Mrs. Angus. After all, yesterday's experience was a serious physical and mental torment for a child. Fortunately, there's no need to accompany Mrs. Angus to the ladies' afternoon tea today. After breakfast, Mrs. Angus began to tidy up the hotel, while Mr. Angus continued to teach Lauren how to read storybooks. Roland is proficient in all languages, but he still patiently listens to Mr. Angus. After all, he cannot act too out of place. Of course, it's not entirely Mr. Angus. Lauren also raises some questions, some about the town and some about the castle behind the hotel. The topic of this castle caught Mr. Angus's interest, and he told the story about the castle with vivid emotions and detailed details. Since a British nobleman established his territory here hundreds of years ago, it only took more than 10 minutes to tell the family history of that nobleman. In the middle, there were ups and downs of love, hate, and hatred, portraying a rural lord as a knight of the Round Table. In Mr. Angus's description, the nobleman and his family lived in the castle for less than 200 years. During these 200 years, they experienced the ups and downs of the family, the struggles between the court, the rebellions within the territory, and wars from outside. In the end, the entire family fell apart under the opposition of the three heirs. The eldest son of the last generation of heirs died on the throne of the castle, and the second son died in a rebellion battle. The whereabouts of the youngest son are unknown, leaving behind countless legendary stories. And then the once prosperous Joford Castle became the largest pending demolition project in this area. Lauren felt a bit off listening. The name of this castle seemed to have been heard somewhere before, but she couldn't remember it. I think when I grow up in the future, Mr. Angus will take me to the castle to play and see if the system prompts can be triggered. Mr. Angus is talking incessantly, and he has told everyone who comes to inquire about the castle. After all, small hotels rely on the castle to attract guests and bring in considerable income. Lauren looked at Mr. Angus with a look of admiration and said, "Although I don't understand, it looks so impressive." Looking at Lauren's gaze, Mr. Angus spoke even more happily until Mrs. Angus reminded him that it was time for lunch. After lunch, it's Lauren's nap time. This habit seems to have been brought over from a previous life, and not taking a nap after lunch always feels uncomfortable. After tidying up, Mrs. Angus went to see Mrs. Doris for afternoon tea, while Mr. Angus waited for Lauren to finish his nap and continue teaching him to read fairy tales. At dinner time, Mr. Angus proudly announced, "Lauren is the smartest child, and now he can read storybooks by himself." After dinner, the Angus and his wife were chatting, while Lauren quickly ran back to his room, using the excuse of reading a storybook. In fact, he went to consult the Encyclopedia of the World to get a better understanding of the world from the book. Angus couple division line. Nona, is there something wrong with little Lauren? He used to feel out of place with his surroundings, but since yesterday, he has suddenly changed. Joel, no matter what, Lauren is still our child. Isn't he looking good now? There's nothing bad, Nona. It's just that Lauren suddenly became too fast and acted too smart, and I'm a bit worried. Joel, Lauren is our child. Yes, Lauren is our child. Chapter 4 is about you, Harry Potter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lauren did not hear the conversation between the Angus couple. Now Lauren is in his room, flipping through the bought Encyclopedia of the World. This is a book published in 1960, more than 20 years ago, no wonder Mr. Charlotte gave it to him. Carefully flipping through the Encyclopedia of the World, the first step was to look at the table of contents. It was found that the table of contents did not directly mention the situation of various countries in the world, but there were many familiar place names between the lines of the table of contents. Rocks in the 4 valleys of the United States, strange lakes in Antarctica, strange satellites over Earth, and secret bases on the Moon. Looking at these words, there is a sense of instant vision from watching 100,000 Whys in my previous life, all of which are phenomena that catch the wind, speculate recklessly, and cannot be explained. Lauren sighed and began flipping through the British version of 100,000 Whys. I no longer pay attention to the various bizarre events recorded in the book, but carefully look at the place names, animal names, and plant names that appear between the lines. After realizing that all of this matched the memories in his mind, Lauren breathed a sigh of relief. At least it is a world similar to Earth, and the world pattern is also similar to the previous life, at least it will not be any strange world. Overall, it is a safe environment now, and Lauren feels that she should first develop steadily for a period of time. Lauren mentally compared the items listed before. 1. Communicate with parents. This has been completed, and now I am no longer a fool, but a normal person. 2. Confirm your location and time. Now it can be confirmed that this world is similar to the Earth of the previous life, at least many place names are the same. Now I am in a small town called Brookle in the UK, in August 1982, and I don't know much more. 3. Explore the extraordinary of this world. This one already has a certain clue, and now we need to follow this clue to finally confirm. 4. Keep developing and don't be reckless. This was not handled properly, and a fool suddenly became eloquent, which made him a little anxious. After careful consideration, Lauren made the following plan. 1. Strengthen your reputation as smart and lovely, and live as a child of someone else's family. Only by consistently being excellent can others not think too much about how they suddenly become smarter, but rather take their intelligence for granted. 2. Learn about the world through the bookstore in the town. Going to bookstores more often can not only strengthen the reputation of being someone else's child, but also help you understand the world, killing two birds with one stone. 3. Dig deep into Hermione's line. More contact with Mrs. Doris, and finally through Mrs. Doris, contact with Hermione confirms the current world. 4. Steady development, don't be reckless. Don't do anything out of line, do things that fit your current age group. After confirming these things, Lauren rubbed her temples and continued to develop. Now, regardless of anything else, go to bed first. The dividing line of development, Lauren has now started to develop silently, with a very regular daily routine. Wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do some exercises suitable for children in the room based on the knowledge of the previous life, such as running, jumping rope, spinning and spinning. Fortunately, there is a thick blanket in my room that won't disturb others. At 7 o'clock, I go to wash up and eat. At the dinner table, I listen to my parents chatting and sometimes exchange a few words with them, appearing cute and well-behaved. During the period from 8 o'clock to 12 noon, when his parents are busy with hotel affairs, Lauren will obediently stay at the hotel counter, greet everyone passing by, and even have a few conversations with them, but not much, maintaining a smart and cute persona. After the parents finish their work, they go out together to purchase the necessary items for the hotel, and also brush up on the reputation in the town, allowing themselves to evolve from being smart and cute to being someone else's child, in everyone's eyes. From 12:00 to 2:00 in the afternoon is lunchtime and nap time. Lauren has always maintained the habit of taking a nap, after all, he is still a child. In the morning, he is exercising and pretending to be cute, and he is also quite tired. From 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is Lauren's free time. Usually, Lauren would take a stroll around the street, chat with adults, read books at the bookstore, or go to Mrs. Doris for afternoon tea. From 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. is dinner time and time to spend with parents. During this time, Lauren will talk to her parents about what she did today and behave very well. At 9 o'clock, Lauren went to rest on time and wouldn't leave exhaustion until the next day. Developing. After 3 years of development, Lauren has undergone significant changes, and the previous plan has also been almost completed. I have become a role model for other children's parents in educating their children, even though there are not many in the town. Through 3 years of constantly reading in bookstores, I have been able to determine that this is a world similar to the Earth in my previous life, with various countries present, but it seems a bit different, but at least the overall environment is safe. The deep exploration of Hermione's clue was very successful, and it was confirmed that Hermione's surname was Granger. After learning about this surname, Lauren also had some speculations about the world. Now Lauren has become friends with Hermione over the phone and has agreed to regularly share the new books they have read. The Granger family has also invited Lauren's family to visit. As for the final development of oneself, this is clearly reflected on the system panel. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. None skills. Running, advanced, reading, satisfied, cooking, intermediate, cheating, intermediate, performance, intermediate. Click to expand talent. 1. Strange knowledge. This brain is filled with strange knowledge that may be useful at some point. P.S. Most knowledge is not useful to a normal person for a lifetime, so it's best to pray that you won't use it. 2. Chaotic thinking. Your mind is in a peculiar state of confusion, which prevents it from being affected in any way, whether it is good or bad. P.S. Saying you're crazy and still thinking normally, saying you're not crazy and your thinking is chaotic. Are you a normal person disguised as a crazy person or a crazy person disguised as a normal person? 3. Full language proficiency. Given that your mother tongue is Chinese, everything you see and hear now will be converted into Chinese, and the words you say and write will be converted into corresponding words and languages in the eyes of others. P.S. Chinese is spoken all over the world. 4. World feedback. Every world is unique, there are no two identical worlds, but each world will have shadows from other worlds. Now that you have those strange knowledge in your brain, you can put it to use. Find those shadows, and you can get feedback from the world behind them. P.S. Look for differences between worlds, and if you find them, you will receive rewards. This is a big profit deal. 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Human habits can be developed through nurture. It took you 3 years to develop these habits, and your willpower was strengthened. P.S. This talent also increases your mental resistance, but it seems like you won't be able to use it. System evaluation. A child who strives far beyond their peers. Now that Lauren is 5 years old, he needs to consider the issue of studying. He could have attended a preschool class, reception grade, in the UK at the age of 4, but the town is too small and desolate, with only a few children, so there is no primary school. To study, he usually has to go to the nearest city centre. After discussing with Lauren for a long time, the Angus couple decided to let Lauren go to London for education. The educational resources there are better, and the Angus couple hopes that Lauren will receive a better education. There are properties left by elders in the city of London, and Mrs. Angus usually stays with Lauren in the city. Mr. Angus continues to operate this hotel. When it's time for vacation, Lauren and Mrs. Angus will take the train back to town. There aren't many other options in England, but there are really many holidays. After the couple agreed to contact each other by phone every day, it was decided that Lauren would go to London for school. The next day, Lauren and his family of 3 boarded a train to London and stumbled into the city. After arriving in London, the Angus couple and Lauren began to get busy. The first thing to do was to tidy up their place of residence and solve Lauren's enrollment problem. After several days of busyness, they settled in London and it was almost time for school to start. Mr. Angus was also preparing to return and continue operating the hotel. However, there is one important thing to do, which is to visit the Granger family, as previously agreed through Mrs. Doris. Because Granger and his wife are dentists, they usually have to work and only come to visit during weekends. On the last weekend before the start of school, the Angus couple took Lauren to visit the Granger family, who lived very close, only 1 street apart. Along the way, Lauren's mood was very excited, and soon he could determine the specific world he was in. When they arrived at the Granger couple's house, they warmly welcomed them. After all, Mrs. Doris had praised Lauren many times with them. Here, Lauren finally met Hermione, whom she had been longing for. Ding! Contact with the main characters has been confirmed, and the current world has been confirmed within the Harry Potter worldview. It is indeed the world of Hermione and her 2 useless men. Ding! The system sent a follow-up prompt again, but Lauren didn't have time to read it anymore. Chapter 5. Develop well and don't be reckless. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the Granger couple's house, Lauren finally met Hermione Jane Granger and successfully confirmed the world news. There are follow-up prompts on the system panel, but Lauren didn't have time to read them. He was observing the little girl in front of him. She had curly brown hair and brown eyes, and her iconic large teeth had not yet appeared. After all, she had not yet reached the stage of dental replacement, but her appearance was somewhat similar to that of a movie she had seen in her previous life. And Hermione was also observing him, a friend who had only talked on the phone. After both parents had taken their seats in the living room and started formal communication, Hermione pulled Lauren to her own room and began the conversation between the two children. Lauren was taken into her room by Hermione and immediately looked around. This is a traditional girl's room with cute decorations and a small bookshelf where some books are stored. Hermione saw Lauren staring at her bookshelf as soon as she entered the room, and found that Lauren really enjoyed reading as mentioned on the phone. She happily said to Lauren, "Lauren, do you want to take a look at my collection of books? The books on the bookshelf are all the ones we talked about before, and the books in the box next to them are newly bought and I haven't read them yet." Looking at Hermione's excited expression, Lauren also responded with a smile. "It seems that you have fulfilled our agreement very well. You truly deserve to be my best friend." At first, Lauren approached Hermione with a certain purpose, originally just to confirm the world information before making any plans. However, during the communication, Lauren found that Hermione enjoys reading and her principled personality suits his taste. At least people from the Order camp are more popular than those from the Chaos camp. Even Lauren has prepared for the worst. If it weren't for the Harry Potter world, he would have made friends with Hermione for a long time, because making friends with a smart and principled person would be much easier. Fortunately, the worst-case scenario did not occur. At the first sight of Hermione, Lauren made up his mind that he had recognized Hermione as a female friend in his lifetime, and that it was not an act of provocation. "Well, we will be the best friends." Hermione also expressed her joy upon hearing Lauren's words. Afterwards, Lauren accompanied Hermione to chat, discussing the books she had read and her plans for the future. From now on, Lauren is preparing to subtly change Hermione. After all, Hermione's initially arrogant and insecure personality in the original work is unacceptable to Lauren. Aojiao has already retired from the environment. Now is the era of childhood sweethearts, and one must create their own future happiness. Lauren silently thought in her heart. Division line. After dinner, the Lauren family returned to their residence in London, where the Angus and his wife sprinkled dog food together, feeling reluctant to part ways for the time being. Lauren said that I had eaten enough for dinner and didn't need dog food. After midnight, he returned to his room and started checking the system's prompts. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering the projection of the world in Harry Potter. Do you accept the gift from the world? Yes, no, this prompt has been hanging on the system panel, waiting for him to make a decision. Yes, ding. The Talent World gift has been activated. Ding. Harry Potter has been detected as the main world line, and the current host can choose one of the following rewards. 1. First-generation wizard talent. You will awaken your magic and become a first-generation awakened wizard. Although you have much less magic than those wizards who have been passed down for many years, you have a far greater understanding of magic knowledge and are more adept at using magic skills. P.S. If you can solve the problem of magic, there is no doubt that you will become a hexagonal warrior. 2. Choose a legacy from the 4 giants of Hogwarts, listed below. Gryffindor's sword. Possessing 3 attributes. Breaking magic, toughness, sharpness, and the ability to absorb magic and grow, it can destroy the vast majority of magical items. P.S. A true mage should have 1 wand and 1 sword. The Golden Cup of Hesapatch. It can provide you with a continuous supply of various delicacies and can update recipes on your own. P.S. The Golden Cup you want, 1, 2, 3, or countless. Slytherin's Pendant. Can conceal your malice and your evil behavior. P.S. Mom no longer needs to worry about my camp shifting. I have already bought a house in the evil camp. Ravenclaw's Golden Crown. It can enhance your intelligence and make you more adept at learning magic. P.S. An external brain for learning magic, with your exclusive grandmother inside, or possibly a strange uncle. 3. Choose one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, and the directory is as follows. Old Wand. This is a wand from the hand of the Grim Reaper. With it, you will have powerful power. It only obeys powerful people, and when you fail, it will leave you. P.S. You should know that it is notorious for bullying the soft and being afraid of the hard. Before using it, make sure you are strong enough. Resurrection Stone. It allows the holder to resurrect a deceased person. However, resurrected people are just an illusory existence, they cannot return to life, and their existence will cause great mental pressure on the holders. P.S. It's more reliable to use it to create a virtual wife than to resurrect loved ones. Invisible Cloak. This is a magical item that can make the holder completely invisible, making them completely invisible when wearing it. P.S. Ah. Transparent Fruit, my lifelong pursuit. I'm sorry, I went on the wrong set. Sanji, looking at the option in front of him, Lauren suddenly asked, System, is there a hierarchy for world gifts? Ding. The world gift is determined by the proportion of projections, and this reward comes from the projections of the Harry Potter world. After systematic exploration, this world includes projections of a mixed world of Harry Potter novels and movies, with high completeness, so rich prizes are provided. What are the standards for providing prizes in the system? Ding. The provision of prizes is closely related to the projection of discoveries. Taking this prize as an example, the talent of the first-generation wizards came from the host's check that IN character Hermione Jane Granger. The relics of the 4 giants and the 3 Deathly Hallows are precious items that exist in the world. System, is the prize I received determined based on my attendance and projection? Ding. Yes, the host. System, is the selected prize copied for me or directly given to me as the original prize? Ding. Talent and skills are directly copied, and items are directly provided as original items. System, please provide a detailed explanation. Ding. Based on this prize, the first-generation wizard's talent will be to directly copy Hermione's wizard talent onto you. The item will disappear directly from its current location and reappear in the host's hands. After listening to the system's explanation, Lauren broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he had the system explain it, otherwise he would have really fallen into a trap. In my current situation, those few items are the same and cannot be touched. It may seem like there are many options, but in fact, there is only one option. System, I choose the first-generation wizard talent. Ding. The host has made a selection, talents have been loaded, and the system panel has been updated. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. None, transferable, skill. Omitted. Click to expand talent. 1. Strange knowledge. Omitted, 2. Chaotic thinking. Omitted, 3. Proficiency in all languages. Omitted, 4. World feedback. Omitted, 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Omitted, 6. First-generation wizard talent. You have the initial wizard talent, and apart from having less magic, your talent is the most perfect, P.S. As is well known, the world of Harry Potter does not have a blue bar, only a stamina bar. System evaluation. A promising little wizard upon seeing the prompt for job transfer on the career interface, he immediately asked. System, what is the situation of job transfer? Ding. The current host already has professions that meet the prerequisite conditions. The host can view the relevant job transfers. The system displays relevant job transfers. Ding. There are currently 2 professions that meet the requirements for job transfer, as listed below. 1. Silent. Young wizards suppress their magical power to escape misfortune, but due to a lack of guidance, they have not learned to control their own power, thus giving rise to the parasite. The dark magical power of silence. The silent one is the host, hosted by the dark magical power of silence. Once a wizard experiences great emotional fluctuations, silence within their body will erupt, turning them into a black mist without substance, with extremely powerful destructive power. If they keep not using magic, they will silently devour the host. P.S. This profession is the ultimate profession, a shortcut to nuclear balance. 2. Wizarding apprentices. Young wizards who have initial exposure to magic, their magic is extremely unstable, and when they are emotionally agitated, they will produce a magical riot. Therefore, they need wands to guide their power and assist them in completing spells. They learn various magic skills through learning, and when they graduate from a magic school, they will automatically switch to becoming wizards. P.S. Wizardry apprentice is just a title, don't pay too much attention to details. In a sense, the Big Four of Hogwarts are also just wizardry apprentices. Lauren looked at the two options silently for a long time, and it was this seemingly multiple choice but actually a single choice. System, switch to wizard apprentice, ding. The job transfer is successful, and the system panel is starting to upgrade. Ding. The panel is being upgraded. Chapter 6. New projections. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ding. Upgrade progress 10%. 30%. 80%. 100% ding. The panel upgrade has been successful. Please check it yourself. System, open the panel. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. Witcher apprentice life skills. Omitted. Click to expand professional skills. 1. Magic mastery, beginner. You have magic in your body, but you still cannot control it well. Talent. 1. Strange knowledge. Omitted. 2. Chaotic thinking. Omitted. 3. Proficiency in all languages. Omitted. 4. World feedback. Omitted. 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Omitted. 6. First-generation wizard talent. Omitted. System review. A newly launched wizard apprentice system, explain the upgrade content. Ding. The host already has a profession, and now the skills are divided into life skills and career skills. All skills that require profession as a prerequisite are career skills, and skills that do not require profession as a prerequisite are life skills. Ding. New features, skill breakthroughs, and skill fusion. Ding. Skill breakthrough. You can burn existing skills to use as a breakthrough fuel for other skills. Skill burning can be divided into two types. One is the burning potential, where the skill will exist on the panel but lose its advanced potential after burning, and the second is complete burning, where the skill will disappear from the panel. Ding. Skill integration. Same type skills can be integrated together, sharing levels, and life skills can be integrated into vocational skills to help skills break through. What is the impact of the skill disappearing from the panel? Am I unable to use this skill? Ding. The disappearance of skills from the panel will not affect the host's use, but the skills are not protected by the panel. What happens when the system and skills are not protected by the panel? Ding. 1 day without practicing manual labor, 3 days without practicing oral labor, and 1 month without practicing for 3 years without learning. Is the burning skill related to skill level in the system? Ding. The higher the skill level, the greater the potential. The lower the level, the smaller the potential. What is the difference between system, skill fusion breakthrough, and skill burning breakthrough? Ding. Skill fusion expands skill breadth, skill burning strengthens skill intensity. After listening to the system explanation, Lauren carefully thought about how to develop himself. In the end, they all fall on one point: as long as they don't die, they learn to the death. Now, no matter what else, go to bed first and don't leave fatigue until the next day. The next day, Mr. Angus was leaving London and returning to town to continue operating his own small inn. Mrs. Angus is preparing to take Lauren to see Mr. Angus off. Lauren said that he can stay in his room to read books and preview school content in advance, so he can't disturb his parents' world together. After praising Lauren a few words, the Angus couple went out to sprinkle dog food. After the Angus couple left, Lauren began to organize his books and calculate the skills he could learn. The most convenient way to learn now is various sports. As long as you read a book, you can get started with skills. Practice a few times and you can reach beginner level. The only other skill is to read more books. First put the skills on the panel, and then don't lose anything. The current financial situation at home cannot support me to buy too many books. After all, books in the UK are still quite expensive. The only way now is to go to Hermione's place to read books. When I get older, I can go to the library to read books. This way, both learning and Hermione are not delayed, and Lauren likes his wit. In the following days, Lauren often went to Hermione's house to play, and the two of them read, studied, and communicated together, gradually transforming Hermione into Lauren. After starting school, the problem arose, which was that there were not enough books to read, or in other words, Hermione couldn't keep up with his reading speed and the book updates were slow. There was no way. Lauren pestered Mrs. Angus and asked her to find a job as a librarian. Although I don't earn much money, my job is easy and I have time to sprinkle dog food on the phone with Mr. Angus. Every day after school, Lauren can take Hermione to the library to read books, and when leaving, he can also borrow books to go home to read. The Granger couple strongly supports Lauren's approach. With Lauren's help, Hermione's learning ability has significantly improved. Although her reading speed may not be as fast as Lauren's, it is much faster than that of an average child. Although both Granger and his wife are dentists and can be considered average families in London, books are really expensive in the UK. Now Lauren is taking Hermione to the library to read books, and they can also borrow books, which has saved them a lot of expenses. The Granger couple also expressed their gratitude to Mrs. Angus. On weekends, Mrs. Angus often stays at Hermione's house when she goes back to Brookle. Lauren often uses the excuse of not disturbing their parents' world. After spending some time together, the Granger couple became more and more fond of Lauren. They agreed to take Hermione to visit their grandmother and the Angus family in the town of Brookle during the summer vacation. Now, with Lauren's help, Hermione has become what other parents call someone else's child, which has given the Granger couple double face. As for Lauren, it is already a legend in the mouths of parents and an idol of children. After all, Lauren studies well, is polite, loves sports, gets along with classmates in school, protects weak classmates from bullying, and has always been a prominent figure on campus. In the blink of an eye, summer vacation time arrived, and Granger's family and Lauren's mother and son took a train to Brookle together. On the train, Granger and Mrs. Angus were chatting. Hermione couldn't bear the shaking of the train and was about to fall asleep. Lauren accompanied Hermione to close her eyes and rest, actually looking at her own panel. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. Witcher apprentice life skills. Football, intermediate, tennis, intermediate, table tennis, intermediate, rugby, beginner, equestrian, beginner. Click to expand professional skills. 1. Magic mastery, beginner. You have started to master your own magic and there will no longer be a magic riot. 2. Magic release, beginner. You start trying to release your own magic, but the effect is not ideal. Talent. 1. Strange knowledge. Omitted, 2. Chaotic thinking. Omitted, 3. Proficiency in all languages. Omitted, 4. World feedback. Omitted, 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Omitted, 6. First-generation wizard talent. Omitted, 7. Reader. Your understanding of words goes beyond imagination, and you can grasp the most useful points for each book. P.S. True transmission of one sentence, false transmission of 10,000 books, system review. A wizard apprentice who knows a little bit about everything and doesn't know magic. Looking at his panel, Lauren felt a lot, and his efforts were still effective. The newly emerged talent reader on the panel is a product of Lauren's experimental skill breakthrough, which was obtained by burning many useless skills at that time. Since possessing this talent, reading has been able to directly grasp the key points, which can be said to be reading a book once its meaning comes to light. While Lauren was immersed in the panel, time passed unconsciously and Brookle Town arrived. Lauren and his group got off the train at the platform of the small station, which is located next to the town of Brookle. There is a not very wide country road connecting the station and the town. Mr. Angus and Mrs. Doris are both waiting for them outside the station. After arranging a visit time with Granger and his wife for tomorrow, Mrs. Angus took Lauren to Mr. Angus's car and returned to the hotel. The next day, the Granger couple visited at the agreed time. Adults sat together chatting, while Lauren took Hermione to visit the room he had organized last night. Hermione was attracted by the scenery outside the window when visiting Lauren's room, and in good weather, the castle behind the hotel was faintly visible. "Lauren, is that the castle you're talking about?" Upon hearing the sound, Lauren looked over and saw the castle at a glance. Suddenly, he remembered that the castle might be a projection of a certain world. He had been addicted to studying for a year and seemed to have forgotten about it, but it was not too late now. "Yes, Hermione, it's that castle. Most of the tourists who come to our hotel are attracted by it." Lauren looked at Hermione and said, "In the afternoon, let my dad drive and take us to the castle to play." Hermione happily asked, "Is the castle fun? Are there any interesting stories?" Roland waved his hand helplessly and then said, "You can ask my dad about the story of the castle. One of his daily tasks is to be a tour guide and guide tourists around the castle. As for whether it's fun or not, I don't know. I've never been there before." "Great, Lauren, I can't wait any longer." After speaking, Hermione ran to find Mr. Angus. It seems that Hermione's adventurous personality is ingrained in her bones. After silently sighing in his heart, Lauren followed Hermione. Mr. Angus looked up at the weather after listening to Hermione's words and suggested, "The weather is nice today. Why don't we set off now and have a picnic next to the castle?" The Granger couple on the other side couldn't resist their daughter's plea and agreed to this plan. Mr. Granger went to find Mrs. Doris and planned to borrow her car. Mr. Angus's car was too small to carry 6 people and picnic supplies. Mrs. Granger and Mrs. Angus prepared the food for the picnic together, while Lauren and Hermione helped on the side. In no time, Mr. Granger drove back with items purchased from the grocery store. Mr. Angus drove ahead with 2 cars heading towards the castle. "New rewards, I'm here." Lauren sat in the car, staring at the castle in a daze. Chapter 7. Fortunately, it's just a projection of the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The castle is located on a highland about 20 kilometers away from the hotel, and from a distance, one can see the outline of the castle. After the vehicle approached the castle, Lauren realized that there were large piles of stones on the high ground, barely able to see what used to be a huge stone building, without any trace of the original castle's appearance. The gray-white cold stones piled up to form a roughly rectangular ruins. Mr. Angus stopped with everyone in the open space next to the highland, which was where he would stop every time he brought tourists. Mrs. Angus and Mrs. Granger took out the food from the car and laid it on a picnic cloth to prepare lunch. Mr. Angus utilized his strengths and began to talk endlessly about the history of the castle. Hermione and Lauren sat around Mr. Angus, listening to him tell stories. Lauren, on the surface, pretended to be listening attentively to Mr. Angus' story, but the actual system had already issued a prompt. Now Lauren is communicating with the system. Ding. Discover the world projection. Ding. It has been confirmed that the world projection is Shieling World System. Isn't this the world of Harry Potter? Ding. The system has never claimed that this world is the Harry Potter world, and its components contain the main projections of the Harry Potter world. The system, if it's the world of heroes, how big the worldview would be. I'm confused about the future. It seems like I didn't watch The Empire of Heroes back then. Ding. Don't worry, the host. After scanning with this system, the projection is very, very small, and there won't be any concerns from the host. Ding. Congratulations to the host for discovering the projection of Shieling World. Do you accept the gift from the world? Yes, no, yes, ding, the gift of the world of talents has been activated, ding. It has been detected that the projection of Shieling World is only an architectural projection and has no special items. The host can choose a skill or talent from the characters related to the projection. 1. Howren Bomberman. You are particularly fascinated by explosions. Wherever you go, it's your style to explode. It's your way of killing enemies with one shot, and all kinds of explosions won't cause actual damage to you. From the goddess of destruction to cow dung on the roadside, they are all your targets. P.S. When frying cow dung, run a little further. This talent only prevents physical damage, regardless of mental damage. Godslayer. In your previous life, you personally stabbed a goddess and stained her blood. You are immune to all non-physical attacks under the goddess's command and can deal damage to deities with the same divinity. P.S. Suppression is greater than heaven, but you need to first figure out the object you are suppressing. Body modification. A body modification project exclusively designed for contract workers under the Empire of Shieling. Every day, thousands of examiners receive reinforcement, which is the on-the-job reinforcement for Shieling examiners. P.S. Although I could only give you a glimpse of the endocrine system at the beginning, the future is promising. Shieling Divine Art. You are a regional-level saint/regional-level bishop candidate/regional-level prophet/regional-level street cadre/regional-level police officer under Raven 12345, and you can use the related divine arts developed by Raven 12345. P.S. When you use the old lady to shield you, as long as you are not embarrassed, it is others who are embarrassed. 2. Lou Lily Werewolf Bloodline. This bloodline brings strong vitality and physical strength, as well as some basic black magic applications. After developing the bloodline, it can transform into a giant wolf with city-destroying combat power. The strong vitality brings a long life, and your life length can exceed the history of most civilizations on Earth. P.S. Huskies with 1/16 of Jingba bloodline should be considered werewolves, right? Powerful Flying Brick, Advanced. Lily's exclusive skill, throwing all the moves you can throw with force. It has a certain targeting and tracking function, and the amount of attack depends on your strength. P.S. You're not afraid of a 10-ton brick flying over. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't lift it. Wong's Treasure. Lily's exclusive talent, you will love to collect stones, whether it's the gravel bricks on the roadside or the floor tiles of the goddess temple. P.S. Dogs have a habit of hiding things at home, and educated huskies are better at collecting things. 3. Vivian Ancesta Divinity * Poverty. You will possess divinity, become a divine creature, gain long-term life and extraordinary power, at the cost of only a little wealth. P.S. As is well known, divinity is a debuff, magic clothes. Vivian's unique blood magic that can apply magic to clothing to prevent damage. It is a magic developed by Vivian to save money. P.S. With this magic, Mom no longer has to worry about my clothes breaking. Red Moon Descends. Awakens the power of the goddess of creation, forcing everyone to fall into chaos under the red moon, and strengthening the power related to the goddess of creation. P.S. Anyway, if you don't eat chaos, it will be a very powerful control. 3. Nangong 38 Monster Hunter Bloodline. Half of the Monster Hunter bloodline has a longer lifespan and can be used to create and use items from monster hunters. P.S. A half-hearted demon hunter, skilled in taking care of children. Rune card making, beginner. Use unique text to create rune cards containing mysterious powers, the strength of which is related to bloodline and production techniques. P.S. Insufficient strength, quantity to make up. 4. Isaac's Devil Bloodline. The bloodline of the great demon king that almost unifies a world, can bring powerful power and long life, and improve the learning ability of related magic. P.S. Do you envy such a powerful force? It's a change in appearance. Meteorite technique, advanced. A powerful, city-level magic that draws meteorites from the universe and smashes them towards the ground. P.S. Are you sure you have the ability to lock in meteorites in the universe? Transmission magic, perfect. You can draw a magic circle with liquid, and standing in the magic circle, you can teleport to any position within a certain distance. The distance varies with the user's strength. P.S. Don't think of blood when it comes to the liquid used to draw magic circles. In fact, soy sauce can also be used. Looking at the options listed in the system, Lauren breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out to be the abnormality world. Although it was the worldview of Helling World, at least he had read the book Abnormality, and knew a little about the abilities inside. System, why are the rewards here so much better than last time? Ding. 80% of 1 is not as good as 1,000th of 100 million. Upon hearing the system's response, Lauren also realized that Harry Potter is just a fairy tale that takes place in a small country. The worldview of the Empire of Shieling can be said to be boundless, so the rewards are also different. Now Lauren is thinking about which one to choose. The options here solve Lauren's biggest problem, the lifespan issue. In Harry Potter, Nicole Lemmy, who relied on the Philosopher's Stone to survive, only lived for over 600 years and looked like he was still in his twilight years. The several options that now appear to increase lifespan can all increase lifespan for a long time, accompanied by powerful power. After carefully comparing several options, it was found that there was only one option. If you had not previously understood the world of abnormality, you would definitely be conflicted about which one to choose, but in Lauren's eyes, there was only one option, which was body modification. Body modification is the on-the-job modification of the censors under the Empire of Helling. Although censors are equivalent to regional-level saints/regional-level bishop candidates/regional-level prophets/regional-level street cadres/regional-level police officers, etc., that is for the Empire of Helling. In many legends of civilizations, observers named censors are bestowed with titles and positions similar to gods. Although the early stages of body modification did not work, as we continue to grow, things like rigid shields or storage spaces connected to the soul, which are not fragrant. The other few are all kinds of pitfalls, the most pitfall being the poverty of divinity, which puts an ancient person on the brink of bankruptcy for his entire life. He almost starved several times, from being conquered by demon hunters in the Olympian theology to the destruction of the Roman Empire, all of which are somewhat related to this divinity. Secondly, there is the bloodline of the demon hunter, and the development of bloodlines requires guidance. Relying on one's own development is nothing. At least Nangong 388 had a father who taught him for a period of time, but he had nothing and could only stare blankly. There is also demon bloodline, strong is really strong, ugly is really ugly, choose this day and you don't have to live it anymore. Finally, there is the werewolf bloodline, which is the best option besides body modification. This is not comparable to those werewolves in the Harry Potter world, with a lifespan of several thousand years and dozens or even hundreds of tons of physical strength. It is truly fragrant, but this husky spirit with 1/16 of Kinba bloodline is likely to have a debuff of wisdom. As for the other options, Bomberman can give up, Lauren doesn't have that artistic talent. The targeting of the God Killer is too strong and has no help for the current Lauren. As for the spirit technique, if Raven 1 2 3 4 5 cannot receive prayers, transmitting power is okay. If you can really accept prayers, it depends on whether the big shots behind the system are tough or not. Other skills are not evaluated and can basically be found in the world of Harry Potter. System, select body reinforcement. Ding. Choose, complete, whether to start strengthening or not. During the strengthening process, there may be a coma of more than 10 seconds. It is recommended that the host activate the strengthening while sleeping. Not currently enabled. During the communication between Lauren and the system, Mrs. Angus has already prepared lunch. Hermione pulled Lauren as she walked and said, "Lauren, let's go have lunch first. After lunch, we'll explore the castle." "Okay, I also want to go and take a look." Lauren already had the idea of taking a look to confirm the specific situation of the projection and whether it would affect him. Chapter 8. Development, or development. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing lunch and taking a nap, Hermione took Lauren to explore the ruins of the castle. Mr. Angus didn't trust the two children to explore the ruins and followed suit. At the beginning, Hermione enthusiastically searched around, looking for various buildings that had appeared in Mr. Angus's previous story, but upon seeing them, everything was desolate, and most of the buildings on the ground had collapsed. "Uncle Joel, is the castle really like what you said in your story?" Hermione stopped looking around and turned to ask Mr. Angus. "Of course, although the buildings on the ground have collapsed, the underground maze still exists," Mr. Angus said and walked towards the underground entrance he found. Upon hearing Mr. Angus's words, Lauren followed with a few steps, and Hermione followed closely behind. The underground maze is Lauren's main goal. If he really leaves a devil's stone below like an abyss, and a demon comes knocking on the door, then Lauren really can't survive. Arriving at the underground entrance, Lauren was about to go down, but was grabbed by Mr. Angus. "Lauren, you can't go down." "Hermione, you too." Mr. Angus also grabbed Hermione with his other hand. Looking at the two children and himself, Mr. Angus explained. "A large part of it has collapsed below, with gravel everywhere. It's too dangerous for you to go down." Upon hearing Mr. Angus's words, Hermione gave up the idea of going on an adventure, but still squatted next to the underground entrance, stretching her head hard towards the entrance, hoping to see something. What caught her eye was pitch black, with nothing visible. Roland stood aside, losing interest in the underground maze. According to the memories of his previous life, when the protagonist of Abnormality arrived, Mr. Angus was already a middle-aged man in his 40s. Now, Mr. Angus is only in his 20s, and there is almost a 20-year gap in time. Secondly, the underground maze depicted in Abnormality is very extensive, and according to Mr. Angus, the underground maze has now collapsed, indicating that the projection only projects the castle building, and the seal below does not project. Now I can finally relax and not worry about demons knocking on the door and skeletons dancing wildly. Next, Mr. Angus led the two of them around the castle like a tour guide, occasionally pointing to a pile of ruins or partially collapsed buildings and telling a story. His professionalism filled him with a sense of professionalism, truly a means to support his family and eat. If it weren't for Lauren's memory from his previous life knowing that these stories were all fabricated by Mr. Angus to attract tourists, he would really doubt whether Mr. Angus is a descendant of this nobleman, and this castle should belong to him. Hermione listened attentively to Mr. Angus telling stories, and Lauren was by Hermione's side. The two ladies chatted happily while drinking tea, completely ignoring Mr. Granger. Mr. Granger was also bored while staying, so he joined Mr. Angus's tour group midway and listened to his stories together. Time quickly slipped away with Mr. Angus's story, and during his fifth hydration session, the two ladies finished their afternoon tea and greeted everyone back. Mr. Angus also breathed a sigh of relief and told his story all afternoon. It was really tiring. And halfway through, Hermione will also ask some questions due to the loopholes in the story, and Mr. Angus has to rack his brains to fill them. Mr. Granger saw Mr. Angus's embarrassment and helped him smooth things out, so that he wouldn't lose face in front of the children. Night began to fall, and Lauren and his group returned to the hotel. The two ladies went to prepare dinner, and the two gentlemen sat at the table chatting. Lauren and Hermione were also talking on the side. Hermione, do you know what it means to see through but not to speak out? What does it mean, Lauren? Okay, did you hear that the stories my father told this afternoon were all fabricated to attract tourists? What, such a wonderful story is actually fabricated, isn't it a lie? Actually, everyone can see it, but no one is going to expose it. Why, Lauren, deceiving people is not right. Hermione, you should know that everyone who comes to play doesn't care about the truth of the story. As long as the castle is there and there is a story that can satisfy their spirit, then this trip is not a loss for them. It's good to know some things yourself, but if you point them out when everyone knows them, they will be disliked by others. Look at my dad in the afternoon, and your dad is still helping to smooth things out. This is because we are all good friends who can understand and tolerate each other. If we are not familiar, we will definitely have a falling out with you. As they were speaking, dinner was ready and everyone stopped chatting and had a pleasant meal together. During this time, Hermione apologized to Mr. Angus for the afternoon incident, which caused Mr. Angus to have a big red face. The others laughed heartily, and the air was filled with a joyful atmosphere. After dinner, Granger and his family said goodbye and left. Lauren also used the excuse of being tired from playing in the afternoon to return to his room early. System, start strengthening. When Lauren was ready and lying in bed, he began calling out to the system, ready to receive the world gift. Ding! Start strengthening. The sound of the system rang out, and a beam of light flashed before Lauren's eyes. Then he fell into darkness, silence, and boundless chaos, as if space had lost its meaning. Lauren felt his soul detach from the body in that moment, drifting in an ethereal and indescribable dimension. He tried to search for even the slightest familiar five senses, but found nothing, no sound, no light, no temperature and touch. The human spirit was locked in a small bottle. Wandering alone. Well, after about 10 seconds, my vision began to gradually recover. Lauren suddenly sat up from the bed, opened the system panel, and began to check his own changes. System panel name. Lauren Angus occupation. Witcher apprentice life skills. Click to expand professional skills. Click to expand talent. 1. Strange knowledge. Omitted, 2. Chaotic thinking. Omitted, 3. Proficiency in all languages. Omitted, 4. World feedback. Omitted, 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Omitted, 6. First-generation wizard talent. Omitted, 7. Reader. Omitted, 8. Body transformation. The on.the.job transformation from the censors of the Shieling Empire is the cornerstone of their future strength. As censors grow, their lifespan will continue to grow with their souls, and various abilities will be developed, such as visual enhancement and rigid shields. P.S. Growth also requires energy. How much can you provide? Here's a piece of advice. Sunbathe more. System evaluation. A wizard apprentice with an endless future. Looking at the prompts on the system panel, Lauren realized that there were some flaws in the body modification. It seems that I only focused on where to go and the various powerful abilities brought by the transformation of the bomb, forgetting how much good food he had eaten. In Abnormality, the protagonist occasionally goes to God's house to grab snacks, and even receives year-end bonuses and golden apples. He has also eaten various fruits from the divine realm. That golden apple cat can transform into a human after eating it, let alone other good things. There's no way, the energy is not enough. Let's make do with time, learn from Superman, bask in the sun for more than 10 years, and slowly develop. Lauren lay back in bed and carefully considered the direction of her future actions. 1. Strengthen the education of Hermione. Although we may not see the future, happiness is definitely something we can control ourselves. The impulsive, arrogant, insecure little lion who doesn't know how to get along with others should disappear. A beautiful and understanding girl will be our excellent companion. 2. Explore other possible projections in the City of London to earn rewards, such as in worlds like Sherlock Holmes, Assassin's Creed, and the Moon, where there are scenes from London, and you can carefully search for them in your free time. 3. Do not come into contact with the magical world. Everything should focus on stable development. If your current development is good, do not let it grow out of thin air. Be careful and develop with peace of mind. Wait for the day when the round-faced fat chicken arrives. 4. If conditions permit, improving one's professional skills, especially mastering magic, should be the core skill of a wizard, and practice as much as possible. For the development of magic, one can rely on the memories of the previous life, but it should also be implemented after the magic mastery level is high. If the level is too low, it is easy to encounter problems. 5. Read more books, learn more life skills, improve skill levels, research skill integration, try skill breakthroughs, and prepare enough fuel for future career skill breakthroughs. The top priority now is these points. The ultimate goal is not urgent now. After all, with a long lifespan, there is plenty of time to explore the mysteries of life and death. However, we can start preparing for the matter of increasing lifespan. Now that our lifespan is long, it can be called longevity, but both our family and Hermione's family are still troubled by the issue of lifespan. However, it's not urgent. There's plenty of time now, so let's explore slowly and see if the problem can be solved through world gifts. If it doesn't work out, we can only wait for ourselves to come into contact with the magical world and refine the elixir of immortality. I believe that with the blessing of the surface version, we can definitely do it. After confirming the plan, Lauren tidied up and prepared to go to bed. After all, Lauren never brought fatigue to the next day. Chapter 9. 6-Year Development. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flows like water, 6 years pass by in a flash. Lauren and Hermione have already graduated from elementary school. Lauren is becoming more and more handsome, coupled with the calm temperament brought by studying her usual performance in school, which makes Lauren highly sought after by girls. Hermione has also become more and more similar to her memory, just like the original work, with slightly larger front teeth. However, Hermione did not become as sensitive and insecure as in the original work, using a proud shell to protect herself. But with the help of Lauren, he became more confident, but not arrogant, adhering to the principle of not causing trouble and not being afraid of things, and treating people with ease. In 6 years, Lauren and Hermione's relationship had a breakthrough development. In the eyes of outsiders, they were a pair of golden children and jade daughters, and their parents also agreed with their relationship. They even planned to get engaged after they turned 16 and get married at the age of 18. Both Hermione and Lauren are not very concerned about the topic of marriage. They have already recognized each other and cannot be influenced by that marriage certificate. In the first 4 years, Lauren's main focus was on reading and practicing skills, and with Hermione's company, life was not boring either. In the following 2 years, most of the books in the library had already been loaded into his mind, and he had also reached a certain bottleneck in skill practice, so Lauren spent more time on Hermione. The changes in Lauren over the past 6 years can be reflected on the system panel name. Lauren Angus Occupation. Witcher Apprentice Life Skills. Martial Arts, Beginner, comma. Click to expand professional skills. 1. Magic Mastery, Advanced. Advanced Magic Mastery allows for silent casting without a staff, but with less power. 2. Magic Release, Advanced. You can release magic and surround yourself. If any magic wants to work on you, ask if your magic agrees. 3. Alchemy, Advanced. A master of alchemy who touches the edge of God's realm. 4. Charm Studies, Intermediate. Use some simple life spells at will. 5. Magic detection, intermediate. External magic can detect items within a certain range. Talent. 1. Strange knowledge. Omitted, 2. Chaotic thinking. Omitted, 3. Proficiency in all languages. Omitted, 4. World feedback. Omitted, 5. Self-disciplined individuals. Omitted, 6. First-generation wizard talent. Omitted, 7. Reader. Omitted, body modification. After 6 years of exposure to the sun and constant meals, we have initially developed a rigid shield, visual enhancement, and spiritual space. P.S. Young men need to work harder, physical development is a long and arduous task. 9. Breath blocking. A talent from assassins, able to conceal your breath and block others from peeping. You are just an ordinary person like those around you. P.S. Who said that breath block is used for assassination? Aren't assassins all killing all witnesses in a frenzy? System evaluation. A wizard apprentice who can defeat most wizards in the wizarding world. The skill cultivation, beginner level, on the panel is a fusion skill. The skill was originally a gift skill from the world of Type Moon. Martial arts, advanced. The world of the Moon was triggered by Roland and Hermione's visit to the museum, and the projection is a cultural relic left by the Knights of the Round Table back then. After obtaining the advanced level of martial arts, Lauren integrated it with various martial arts and sports skills he learned through reading books, and ultimately obtained the beginner level of martial arts. Improving martial arts, beginner level, is no longer achievable through personal training. You need to defeat the strong with your martial arts skills or challenge your limits to improve. Under normal circumstances, there is no hope for improvement in this world. The second world gift triggered by Lauren is a talent from Assassin's Creed. Breath blocking. This was triggered by Lauren and Hermione while visiting St. Paul's Cathedral. This ability came very timely, and with this talent, Lauren dared to confidently study magic. After all, London is considered the place where wizards appear the most in the world of Harry Potter, and their magic is leaked haphazardly. I don't know what it will bring. Lauren's research on magic has achieved certain results, among which his mastery of magic has advanced to a higher level. Now Lauren can cast spells silently without a staff, which has greatly helped him in his research on alchemy and magic spells. Alchemy was not learned from the magical world of Harry Potter, but rather appeared on the panel by Lauren himself by studying Nicole Lemmy's alchemy manuscript in the library and combining it with his memories from a previous life. At the beginning, alchemy was only beginner level, but it was only after integrating Lauren's self-taught engineering skills with his own culinary skills, advanced level, that he reached intermediate level. This is basically the limit of Lauren at this stage. The breakthrough in alchemy originated from an experiment by Lauren, who restored the experiment of the bottle figurine he had seen in his previous life. He really trained the bottle figurine with magic, but the bottle figurine was very strange and wanted to manipulate Lauren. In the end, he was destroyed by Lauren, and related research stopped. Curse studies originate from Lauren's memories of watching Harry Potter in his previous life, which are all everyday spells such as the floating curse, illumination curse, flying curse, cleansing curse, repair curse, and so on. Of course, there is also the magic developed by Lauren based on his memories from his previous life, which imitates the mage's picking skill in Diablo 2. Teleportation. It is a product of the combination of the flying curse and magic detection, which can directly transmit objects of a certain weight within the detection range to the hands. This spell has been a great help to Lauren. As is well known, travelers need to earn money to support their families, but Lauren really doesn't know how to make money in London, England in the 1980s. With this curse, Lauren transformed into a trash guy, using magic to detect treasures underground and find jewelry that the wealthy didn't want while playing with Hermione. Every time, one gains a lot, and these things with artistic value are handed over to adults to exchange for money and improve their lives. The remaining part was melted into gold blocks by Lauren using alchemy and stored. More gold and silver were consumed by Lauren in alchemy. Based on his previous life's memories and advanced alchemy, Lauren successfully practiced pure gold. It is the kind of pure gold that can prolong life in one piece, which is Lauren's highest masterpiece. Drawing on the concept of immortality of gold, in Eastern legends, it uses silver as fuel to extract pure gold from gold. Now the rings of the Angus and Granger couples have been plated with pure gold, and Lauren told them not to take off the rings. Adults are aware of Lauren's abnormalities and naturally listen to Lauren's words. After all, a child who can pick up jewelry and cultural relics every once in a while cannot be said to be normal. Due to Lauren's financial fortune, Mr. Angus has sold his hotel in town and moved to London to reunite with Mrs. Angus, without worrying about money. As for Hermione, after a magical uprising occurred at the age of 8, Lauren told her about magic and helped Hermione control it. After all, Lauren's talent comes from Hermione. When Hermione's magic rebelled, Lauren was also affected and his magic also rebelled, but he was quickly controlled by Lauren. Now Hermione's magic control can achieve wandless casting, but Lauren has not taught Hermione how to cast spells. Now Hermione can only use magic to move some lightweight things. It's not that Lauren doesn't want to teach, but because these skills are all developed by himself and do not belong to the orthodox magic of the Harry Potter world. I have my own panel base, so I'm not afraid of any problems. Now we are just laying a solid foundation for Hermione, and systematic learning still needs to start from the magical world. Lauren also told Hermione about things in the wizarding world, not directly mentioning the memories of his previous life, but rather stating that he had the talent for prophecy and learned the news through prophecy. After 6 years of development, Lauren is eager to enter the wizarding world. Now my own development has reached a bottleneck and requires different knowledge to stimulate it. However, Lauren persevered with his excitement and did not blindly enter the wizarding world. After all, 6 years have passed and it's not short of these few days. Since Mr. Angus arrived in London, Lauren has bought Hermione's house next door and usually lives here. After all, parents are true love, and I am just an accident. In addition, researching magic on his own requires a quiet space, so after buying the house, Lauren started renovating it. The part above the ground belongs to Hermione and Lauren, each with their own study and bedroom, as well as a miscellaneous room for storing their belongings. Lauren usually uses magic to clean it. The underground part has been transformed by Lauren's alchemy, becoming his exclusive secret base where Lauren can freely study magic. Hermione and Lauren's actions were accepted by both parents, but the Granger couple still demanded that Hermione must go home at night, as they are still too young. There is no specific time when the owl arrived in his memories of Harry Potter in his previous life, but it can be confirmed that in July, the newspaper reported a riot caused by the owl delivering letters to Harry. After entering July, Lauren spends time reading newspapers every day. Hermione is very strange, but Lauren says you will know then. One day in July, Hermione was reading a book in her and Lauren's cabin alone, while Lauren sat on the side reading the news in today's newspaper. Suddenly, there was a clattering sound at the window. Lauren looked up and saw 2 Scottish round-faced chubby chickens knocking on the window. Here we are, the invitation letter from the wizarding world.